All right, let's get into it. Today we're going to break down the foundational concepts of the lean startup. This is a methodology that's really all about bringing some order to the chaos of starting something new. And to do that, we first have to tear down a story you've probably heard a million times. See, this whole thing kicks off by challenging the story we're all told about what it means to be an entrepreneur. Eric Ries, the guy who started this whole movement, basically says that the Hollywood version, the lone genius in a garage with a perfect idea who becomes an overnight billionaire, is not just wrong, it's actually dangerous.
And here's the massive disconnect. On one hand, we have this myth of flawless execution. But on the other hand, we have the cold, hard reality. Most startups fail. Most new products just don't work. The lean startup was literally invented to prevent this, to stop this colossal waste of passion, time, and money.
Okay, so if the old way is broken, what's the fix? Well, the core idea is pretty simple, actually. You have to stop thinking about your startup like you're launching a rocket ship, and start thinking about it like you're driving a car. This metaphor is everything. Think about it. A rocket ship needs a perfect, super detailed plan before it even leaves the ground. One tiny mistake, and boom, catastrophe. That's a traditional business plan. But a startup, you're driving in the fog, on a road that's not even on the map yet. You don't need a rigid flight plan, you need a steering wheel so you can make constant adjustments based on what you see right in front of you. And that steering wheel? It's this, the build, measure, learn feedback loop. This is the absolute core activity of a lean startup. It's a cycle. First, you build something, turning your ideas into a real product. Then you measure how actual customers react to it. And finally, you learn from that data, and that learning leads to a decision. Do we keep going, persevere, or do we need to make a big change, a pivot?
And here's the real secret sauce. Success isn't about having the one perfect idea from day one. It's about having a system to find the right idea. And the key to that system is speed. The faster you can whip through this build, measure, learn loop, the more shots you get at figuring things out before you run out of time and money.
But here's the crazy part. The part that feels totally backwards at first. To do this effectively, you plan it in reverse. You don't start by asking, what should we build? No. You start with, what's the most important thing we need to learn right now? From there, you ask, okay, to learn that, what do we need to measure? And only then, finally, do you ask, all right, what's the absolute smallest thing we can build to get that measurement?
That's the million-dollar question, right? It's so easy to trick yourself, to look at numbers going up and think you're making progress. So how do you actually measure learning in a way that's real, that holds you accountable?
Well, the answer is a totally new way of looking at numbers. It's a system designed for the uncertainty of a new venture. It's called innovation accounting.
Now, this is not your boring old accounting class. Innovation accounting is a framework for taking all those big leaps of faith, your assumptions, and turning them into a real quantitative model. It helps you set up clear milestones so you can track if you're actually making progress towards a real, sustainable business.
To make this work, you have to avoid the trap of vanity metrics. You know what I'm talking about. Things like total registered users or total page views. They look great in a presentation, but they don't tell you anything about cause and effect. Instead, you need actionable metrics. An actionable metric isn't, we got 10,000 signups. It's the conversion rate for new users from this ad campaign was 5%. See the difference? That's data you can actually use to make decisions. Innovation accounting basically works in 3 steps. First, you establish a baseline. You use a minimum viable product or an MVP to get real hard data on where you are today. Second, you start to tune the engine. You run experiments over and over again to try and improve those key metrics. And finally, after you've done that for a while, you face the big decision. Are we making real progress here? Should we persevere, or is it time to pivot?
And here's what it looks like in the real world. This is from a startup called Vodazin. Before they pivoted, you can see their metrics were okay, but not great. But look what happened after they changed their strategy based on what they learned. The registration rate more than doubled, activation went way up, and the referral rate, it went from 6% to 54%. That right there is validated learning in action.
Okay, but what about the flip side? What happens when you've been tuning and those actionable metrics just aren't getting better? When you're stuck making little improvements but not real progress? When you're in what some people call the land of the living dead?
This is that moment of truth. This is when you have to seriously consider the most famous and maybe the most misunderstood concept in the whole lean startup playbook, the pivot. Now, a pivot isn't just freaking out and changing your mind. It's not chaos. It's a structured course correction.
You keep one foot planted in what you've already learned, and you use the other foot to take a step in a new direction, to test a new core hypothesis about your business.
And this completely flips the script on what a startup's runway actually is. It's not just how much money you have in the bank or how many months you have left. The real runway is the number of pivots you can still make. It's the number of chances you have left to learn.
And a pivot can mean a lot of different things. A zoom-in pivot is when one little feature of your product turns out to be the whole product. Or a customer segment pivot, where you realize you built the right thing but for the wrong group of people. You could pivot your growth strategy or change from an app to a whole platform. It's a whole toolbox for making strategic changes.
Take IMVU, Eric Ries's own company. They started out building this avatar add-on for Instant Messenger, thinking people wanted to chat with their existing friends. But the data said, nope, so they pivoted. They became a standalone network for making new friends. That one single pivot saved the company and put it on a path to massive success.
So when you boil it all down, what's the one big idea you should walk away with? It's this fundamental shift in how you think. Your startup, your project, your new venture, it's not about executing a plan. It's about running an experiment.
Because look, in this day and age, we can build almost anything we can imagine. So the question isn't, can we build it anymore? The much more important questions are, should we build it? And can we build a sustainable business around this thing? The whole point of the Lean Startup is to answer those questions as fast and as cheaply as humanly possible. And that leaves us with a challenge for you. Think about whatever you're working on right now. What is the single biggest, riskiest assumption you are making? And more importantly, what is the smallest, fastest experiment you could run, maybe even tomorrow, to find out if you're right? Thanks for tuning into this explainer.